Around 5,500 people are admitted to hospital for self-harm in Wales every year. This number hasn't changed in 9 years. The charity Heads Above the Waves says more should be done to tackle the problem. Luke Priestley from Cardiff started self-harming when he was just 16 years old. He's now 22 and has not done it for a year. Cohen-Ennis went along to hear his story.
It's kind of a constant feeling of being really alone. It can often feel like you're the only person that gets you and why you're feeling that way, and can be really tough and really alienates you from the people around you. And then, you know, that pushes you further into the pit of really finding it difficult, and it becomes harder and harder to get out of it.
Luke Priestley is a DJ and music promoter living in Cardiff. He says he wouldn't be where he is today if he hadn't reached out for help.
I had a lot of difficulties with my mental health and didn't really know what was going on. I started self-harming. I really struggled with sort of getting through that. I first tried going to doctors, trying therapy, trying drugs to help with my illness.
When he was 18, Luke was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, which is also known as manic depression. He says young people should be taught more about mental health from an earlier age.
I personally never had any education on it in school. It's really important to at least have an understanding of it, even if it doesn't affect you directly, because at some point in your life you're going to interact with someone that is affected by anxiety or depression. It's about understanding that that's not them being crazy, it's not them losing the plot. It is an illness and it is something that you need to be aware of and be able to help people with. It's quite difficult being a man and talking about your feelings because it's not what everyone does. The stereotype for a guy is to be a laddie lad that, you know, plays rugby and goes out drinking with his mates, and the important thing is to remember life is more than that.
Luke found support from the charity Heads Above the Waves. It taught him different ways to cope with his disorder.
A real particular coping mechanism for me was I taught myself to DJ. There's something I love music, and it's like my one real big passion. So it gave myself a focus. And another one is trying to recognise when you're having a tough time, and giving yourself a break from everything around you. If I'm feeling particularly having a real tough time, and I'm in a quite public place or out with a lot of people, it's about not feeling bad, about removing yourself from that situation. It's been a year since I last self-harmed, and I'm feeling a lot better within myself because of all the work I've done over the last couple of years.
Well, let's delve a little deeper into this with Si Martin from the Heads Above the Waves charity, who we heard mentioned in the film there. Thanks for coming in. Thousands and thousands of people are self-harming in Wales every year, but the numbers are static. Why aren't we getting better at tackling it?
I think the difficult part is that when we see statistics like this, essentially it's the tip of the iceberg. You know, it's like these are the ones who are actually reaching a point where they're in hospital as a result of their self-harm, rather than necessarily the amounts that are actually happening out there. I think it's difficult as well with when we're looking at numbers. It's quite easy to remember that, it's quite difficult to always remember that these are people that we're talking about, you know, and that it's not necessarily just a case of statistics and that. It's people are often presenting in hospitals with other issues as well, but maybe it's, you know, they then notice the self-harm after they've come in for their appointment with something else, you know. So I think statistics can maybe be a little bit misleading sometimes. It's good to look at them and analyse and think, how can we improve and how can we do things better? But I think just in general, more needs to be done to kind of prevent it from reaching that point. Like I say, the hospital kind of
that crisis point. I mean, interesting hearing Luke there. He said, you know, look, it's particularly difficult for men to talk about this kind of subject because of stereotypical images. Do you find that's a problem?
I've reached this really weird point where self-harm was something that I struggled with when I was a teenager, and it went from being something that I would never even dream of talking about to anyone, and now here we are here, you know. And I think it's one of those things that can particularly be difficult for men to talk about mental health because of general stereotypes and this idea of like a stiff upper lip. And I think we just need to do more in general to kind of make men feel okay and normal talking about their mental health and doing it in a healthy and productive way.
People watching this tonight might have concerns about friends, family members. Briefly, I mean, are there signs you should look out for?
The hardest part really is that self-harm can affect literally anyone from any walk of life. That can present itself in all sorts of different ways. The important thing to remember is that it's maybe serving a purpose to someone. So maybe that is them, it's a reaction, it's a coping mechanism. It's them trying to deal with some other aspect in their life. So maybe looking out for, has there been a big life event happen to them that they're maybe struggling to cope with? Have they lost interest in some of their other more positive coping mechanisms, like, you know, we particularly are all about music and art and creative things. So yeah, if someone's maybe lost an interest in those things or is expressing an interest in trying some other new way of coping, then maybe that's something that might help.